Hey, Dave Melinda here, Positive Polarity Podcast. Hope things are going awesome for you. I am excited today to be able to hang out with somebody that helped me in my journey. And so I wanted to invite her on the show, and hopefully she'll help you as much as she helped me. And so, Sarah Schwab, how are you?
Hey, Dave. I am doing really well. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Glad that you could make it. And your company is going to be Content Creation Coach. I've never heard of a content creation coach before you. So are there any out there, or are you like the lone wolf in this thing?
I think I really have a very specific niche and a unique approach. There are many, content marketing agencies or, content creators and copywriters and people who play in the same sandbox that I'm in. But what I'm all about really is helping businesses own their message and own their value online, and really become that thought leader, become that expert and get it out there. And there's a lot, that coach part,
Yeah.
it's a real deal. It's not just about, being able to say the words or write the words or write the blog or whatever. To
Sure.
me, there's a lot that goes on in, putting yourself out there.
That's so cool. So just from the beginning, you and I are in complete opposite, because I use positive polarity that nobody in the world has any clue what that means. That's the company name for that I chose. And yours is completely opposite. Everybody in the world knows exactly what content creation coach is. So hats off to you.
Can I tell you a little quick aside?
Yeah, for sure.
When I rebranded my business after my first year out, I was doing marketing and communications, and I honed in on content. I said I'm going to be content creation coach, and that was now 6 years ago.
Wow, congrats.
And it didn't seem all that long, but 6 years ago, content and content marketing was not in the lingo the way that it is now. And people would be like, what are you talking about? What's content? And now I say content and everybody's like, ooh, I think I need that. So it's been awesome for my business trajectory.
Well, that was smart planning. I'm sure you knew that in advance. You were 5 years ahead of the curve.
I was ahead of the curve.
Good idea. Congratulations. Well, and so, I mean, content means so much to so many different people. And so, I always tell people that, I wrote a book, and but I don't know how to write, right? I'm an author. I had these ideas, and then, but it's like, how do I get it onto a piece of paper? How do I cause somebody to do an action based on that? So where do you fit in with an entrepreneur that's listening that might have a bunch of stuff in between their ears that they struggle getting either on paper, on social media, or even orated out? I mean, where do you fit in that?
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, so much comes to mind. The first is to address that question about content. What even is it? People use that word a lot now.
Right, sure.
Sometimes they're talking about, marketing content or content on their website or content in this materials or that materials. And the truth of the matter is, for me, I have a really specific definition of content. And I think a lot of times when people use the word content, they're actually talking about copy.
Okay.
Copy it's still important. We need copy. We need words that describe our business and who we are and what we do. And, it informs people, and that's important. Copy is usually in the third person. And so it's descriptive. And sometimes, like you said, it has that call to action element to it.
Okay.
For me, true content is about building relationships. It's about making connections. It's about sharing value.
Okay.
So content is written in the first person. I am writing to you, my reader, you, my listener.
Okay.
And so we are making a real connection there. I am sharing some immediate value with you, whether it's, a tip, some information you can apply right away, or a shift in the way you look at things or perceive things. You're going to walk away from that piece of content, from listening or reading it, with some value already without having to pay money, right?
Sure.
That is the power of content. So to me, that's the first distinction I like to make, and make sure people understand that. Then, like you said, how do you get it out? And there's really two. You've got this idea in your head.
Yeah.
What is it? Where does it fit in? What should I create? How do I share it? And content really comes in two different flavors. There's two forms. That's it. You either, like you said, you're going to speak it
Okay.
or you're going to write it. So it's written or it's spoken. That's it.
Okay.
When you think about it, but all the, if I speak my content, maybe it's a YouTube video, maybe it's a podcast episode, maybe it's a, downloadable MP3 file, or, you can now play with those two things,
Sure.
speaking and writing, in lots of different ways, and know how it fits into your overall strategy.
So how do you get it out of my head? Because I remember sitting with you for the morning and like, I was like totally intimidated. I mean, like just full disclosure. I was like, oh my gosh, she's going to like, open me up and find stuff I didn't even know was there. Right. But you had a great way of, doing that for me to be able to access that content that I needed access to. So how in a nutshell do you, sit with somebody and do that in an effective manner?
Absolutely. I mean, well, that's the magic of coaching and of my process.
Right.
But a couple of things. So for one thing, I like to tell people about the curse of knowledge. Have you heard of the curse of knowledge?
I never have.
So the curse of knowledge is this. It says that once you know something, it's really hard to remember what it's like to not know that thing.
Okay.
And so we actually usually know a lot more than we give ourselves credit for. We just don't remember what it was like before we knew all the stuff that we knew. And the truth is, there's a lot of people out there who don't know what you know. And so that's the first step in getting people, because a lot of times they're like, well, I know that, doesn't everybody know that? Doesn't everybody know what I know? Do I really have anything to add? And the answer is yes.
Sure.
Yes, 100% you do. And so from there, what I help people do is I call it chunking, right? Like it's easy. You've got stuff floating around. And what we really need to do when we create content is break it down into little pieces, into little chunks.
Mm-hmm.
Because a blog article or, any piece of content has to be really clear. You're not going to download everything all in one fell swoop. A book, as you know, is a pretty huge undertaking. You can download an awful lot into a book, but most of the time, people need to get it in little teeny tiny chunks. And so a lot of my process is listening and trying to get down all of the information and value that's in people's heads, and then break it into those little chunks.
And I remember when, we're done with our meeting and you had like those big monster Post-it notes everywhere. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is what I do to people, And I did it, and someone just did it to me. And it was like, a part of me was like, I was excited because you get to see your thoughts now on a piece of paper. And it felt really kind of relieving. And there was an energy there that was really, I was comfortable with. But then there was like, wow, how did she do that? So obviously there's we knew each other prior to that experience. So there was a trust that was there, and I was, how do you build that trust? I mean, how do you, in your current coaching practice, how do you build that trust so that somebody can, get that comfort to open up?
With my own clients you're talking about?
Yeah.
So it's funny because I do what I teach. And a lot of times, in some cases, I know my clients, like you and I are in the same geographic area, or I've met people in person at networking, and I'm sure you've talked about those kinds of methods. But the other thing is, I share a lot of content, right? I send out a blog article via email and I post things. And so those people who follow me, you even said this before we started recording this interview. Hey, I've been seeing your stuff on LinkedIn, right?
Right. Yep.
That matters. That is a way of building trust, of establishing credibility. And so one of my favorite things as a content creator and content coach is when people come to me and they're like, I've been following you for a while and I really like your approach and I think I'm ready to do this. And I don't know them at all.
Sure.
They feel like they know me because of my content. And that's the magic of what I do. And it's what I help my clients do, but it's what I try to do, for myself and my own business as well.
That's so cool. So how do you in your watching your stuff on LinkedIn, I rarely see you like repost somebody else's stuff because that's not really your content then, right?
That's correct. Now go ahead.
How does that work? Yeah. How do you, I'm like, oh my God, because that takes time for people. And I mean, it's one thing, and again, LinkedIn is just one of the platforms, but if, since we're on that, it's one thing to invest a little bit of time and find a post and hit the share button. And, I mean, that's one way to do it. But there's a different way where you have this thought in your mind, and whether it turns into a sentence. I mean, we had Motivational Mondays, we had Whiteboard Wisdom Wednesdays. I mean, we had all these things, and I got to a point, Sarah, it was like, man, whew, I'm running out of ideas, I mean, it was just like, where do you get this stuff? So from your perspective, where does that creativity, where do those ideas come from for you to be able to create that content on your own?
Oh my gosh. Well, again, several things coming to mind. The beginning of your question was about reposting.
Yeah.
There is a term for that, of curating other people's content.
Okay.
And it's an acceptable thing to do. It's part of social media marketing. It's part of email marketing, but it's different from doing your own content marketing and establishing yourself as the thought leader, as
Sure.
the go-to person, where other people, wouldn't it be cool if other people were sharing your stuff, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So that's the difference there. As far as keeping the ideas coming, so one thing I definitely do for myself and with all my clients right away is I start a topic list.
Okay.
And so we keep a running topic list, and finding topics becomes a new awareness, like a new part of your just daily routine. And there are places to go and mine for topics.
Okay.
And they're everywhere, right? So first of all, I like to talk to people about their clients and about their ideal clients, their ideal customers.
Sure.
Who are they? What are they thinking about? What are they dealing with? Tell me about their situation. That's a big one, because we want to be connecting to those people.
Right.
One thing that's, I think, a mistake that a lot of people make is they think their content is 100% about them and their business and their service and their product or whatever. It's not.
Yeah.
Your content it has to be related to what you do, but it's really about your reader, about your audience, about your target market. Who are they, and what are they dealing with, and how can you help them right now?
And doesn't content have to be relatable though? I mean, that's where, how do you get into their head?
Yeah.
So I want to write to a struggling entrepreneur, or I want to write to whatever, however niche you want to get. Somebody told me once that if you could sell to just left-handed blue-eyed plumbers, that's how niche you should get. It's like, okay, that sounds awesome, but there's like probably 9 of them in the world, but
you would know them really, really well.
Right. Exactly. But I mean, you think about that, and it's like, we have to kind of, as a coach, or as a blog, as a person that provides content, we really need to understand the person that is reading this. So some people are going to understand you and your journey, right? And those are the people probably that connect more with you than the people that might not understand. Do you find that to be accurate?
100%. So what you're saying, the way that I talk about what you're talking about right now, is that with content, there's 2 sides of that relationship building process.
Okay.
You the business, you the business owner, you the thought leader. And so understanding that side of the equation really clearly is important. And some people need help even there, having a clear message and owning their value and knowing, chunking it down and all that stuff. The other side of the equation is that listener, that person on the other side that you're building that relationship with. And it's a whole nother piece of the process.
Sure.
To really get into their heads and understand who they are. So that's another, side of what I do. In fact, I created, when you were coming up with ideas and topics, I created a downloadable thing where it's 40 topic starters.
Oh.
20 from the perspective of, who am I? What am I sharing? What do I know? What are my experiences? Tell me this story, whatever.
Sure.
There are 20 that are from the perspective of your audience.
Okay.
What do you know about them? Where are they at? What are they struggling with? Those kinds of things. So there's better better prompts in there to really
Sure.
help you come up with what that might look like.
So are those 40 topic starters on your website? Or
They are right now. I'm working on my main download right now is a chapter from my book, but I would be
okay.
more than happy to send that off to folks if they want to email me.
Yeah, if you could send it, we'd put it in the show notes. That'd be fantastic. I mean,
I will do
people,
that.
that would be great. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for that. You know, you brought up the ideal client piece, and I try and train and coach and speak at like about a 6th or 7th grade level because it's relatable for me. And so when we start talking about ideal clients, I use Mr. Potato Head as kind of like my ideal prop because I can put the eyes where I want. I can build the ideal, exactly how I'm feeling that day type of client. So you, I'm assuming, have to do some research, get some background on what your client's ideal customer looks like. I remember you asking me some of those tough questions that no one ever asked me before about my ideal client, because in my mind, I'm thinking everyone needs a coach. So everyone that's in business, I mean, it was like so broad. It was the exact opposite of the left-handed, blue-eyed plumber. It was exact opposite. Couldn't have been any farther opposite. So do you run into people that have that same mentality that everyone should be my customer, so you don't need to know my ideal client, just get the message out there and not worry about the ideal client piece? Do you run into those people?
I think there's two common things I run into. One is it's too broad, which is sort of what you were running into for yourself. It's just not honed in enough. And in fact, a lot of times people will have the demographic piece of it. Like we like to target, women between the ages of 35 and 55 or whatever that is. But that doesn't, I still can't really write to that person. Tell me, I need to know. So what I get into with my clients and with my process is, let's walk through their day. What is their house like? What are their families like? What's their household? What are their struggles? What time does their alarm go off? Like you start going through this experience so that you can really relate to them. And topics, I'm telling you, they come flying out through that experience. But the other thing I run into, especially when it's too broad or it's not a priority, is again, they just want to talk about themselves and their business. Like, why do I need to understand the target audience? And so I want to share one little tip here.
That's for sure.
For people when they start writing content, and I make them do it in the first person, but a lot of times the default is to say we, the global we at this company, blah, blah, blah. It's not personal. And then what I look for is that word you. So the two words that I really look for is I, the thought leader, I, the writer, not global we, but I.
Okay.
And you. You, my reader, do you relate to this? What is this like for you? I bet you can, think of a time when you've experienced whatever. Look for that word you. It's tricky. If it's too much I, we, blah, blah, you're not bringing them into the conversation.
Sure. And so I think of like part of my brain so we do a ton of disc work, and so we use disc personality profile, and the high D people, they're just results oriented. They're probably already shut this podcast off because it's already exceeded the time limit that they had right for this, because there's a big part of me that's like, let's get, not here. I fortunately have some other personality chunks that make it okay. But there's a chunk of me that wants to get it done. I want to know ROI. I want to understand that. And like when I'm hearing all this, what time do I get up? I'm like, what does that have to do with my business? And how in the world do you show a return on my investment? So I invest money with the content creation coach. And what does that look like from a pure ROI perspective? How do you respond to those type of people?
I hear you, people. I get you. And the truth is, so two things again, there are different types of personality folks and, people on the disc wheel where I identified actually 3 different roles that go into an effective content strategy being implemented. You need that idea person, that relationship building person, that the one who's the face of
Yeah.
the content.
Right.
But then you need the strategy person who is going to help make sure that it's chunked and make sure that it's, got SEO keywords in it and make sure that it's reaching the right people and things like that. And then you need your technical side of things. Who's actually posting it? Who's getting it out there? Who's doing that email newsletter? Who's posting social media posts? So the real sort of hands-on part. And those oftentimes are different people, wired in different ways. So yes, I bring the real creative, connective. I'm an I.
Sure.
I'm an I. I'll just say that right now. But
No, my gosh, there's a shock.
I know you're
Are you
shocked.
kidding? Oh, wait a minute here. We got to stop the show. Come on. That's awesome.
But I will say that when you start implementing content, what's beautiful about online marketing in general is the ability to track and is the ability to see those engagements happening. Now, what I will tell people and those D folks looking for your ROI, be realistic. Content marketing is super powerful, but it's not, an overnight switch. You're not going to write one blog article and all of a sudden you go viral and the world.
Forget it then. Interview's over. We're done. And but that's like, you hit that right on the head, because there are a chunk of people that's the expectation. Right. I mean, the deep part of me, that's why I will never in my life, Sarah, play an instrument. Because if I can't pick it up and just, whatever, the best guitar solo ever, then I'm not interested. I don't want to invest the time to get there. So I have that chunk in my personality. So I totally get that there are people like that. And when I can even hear people with the pushback going, be real, be realistic. I don't want to be realistic. I want to give you money, and I want you to do something to turn that money into more money, whatever that is, whatever you do. Okay, ready, go.
Right.
And then,
right.
And that's like that's a lot of entrepreneurs that I work with, that I run into. That's their expectation. Right. So, that's really an interesting way to look at it. And I think when you said idea, strategy, and then the implementation, there's an idea, and then you got to build it out, and then you have to implement that. There's potentially 3 different people in that one company. Smaller companies, that's one person that does all 3 of them.
Right. Or outside help.
Yeah, and then that's why we get people like you to come in and help like that. So I think it's hard to find people that really can admit that they need a coach. So I got to believe you run into people that are very like, I don't need what you have. Not because it's you, but it's just because they're self-sufficient. Do you run into those type of people?
I do, although the beauty of the process is the people who come to me, who I finally talk to or meet with or whatever.
Yeah.
They're ready. They're the ones who are like, okay, I get it. Like, yeah. I've tried myself, or
right.
whatever, I can't do this myself. And that's when they end up coming to me. I really tried not to engage with, the broad end of the pipeline where
right.
those folks aren't really qualified. That
right.
if that's who they are and where they're at, then they're not ready to talk to me yet.
Sure.
Part of the beauty, I say that may sound harsh, but in business, part of the beauty of a good, effective marketing funnel and content strategy and all of this stuff is because the leads you actually want coming through the door, you want them to be at that point where they're ready, where they're relating to what you're talking about, where they're saying, yes, that's me. I should engage.
And I think so. One of the things that I run into are people are always nervous that a coach is going to, dial up it's like hitting the meter, the meter just goes and goes and goes. So I noticed that you have like a done for you package, and then you have like a co-creation package. So can you kind of explain, if I was interested, or there was a listener going, yeah, this makes a ton of sense. I would be curious to take it to the next step and learn more about how, what are the differences between those 2 types of things for you?
So it has to do with those three roles we talked about, actually.
Okay.
So it's important in my process that the business and the business owner, or the whoever the contact is involved, because they are that thought leader role, that idea role. You're the one, you, the business owner, are the one who has that expertise, who knows your industry. I'm not one of these copywriters who's going to go just do generic research and write generic articles. I don't think that that has the same impact of establishing you in that place and building relationship and all that stuff. So
Sure.
you're the thought leader. But me, I can help number one with the strategy piece. What is the strategy? What are the formats that you need? What are where do all of these pieces go? What pieces do you need to begin with? What are the topics? How do we chunk it down? All those fun things that we've alluded to here. That's a really one of my favorite parts of what I do. And that's really the coaching piece. But from there, a lot of them need help with that implementation piece
Right.
as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I have, for some of my clients, started doing some actual writing. It's still based on our conversations and their voice and their stuff and their stories.
Okay.
But in some cases, I do some of the writing, and I can do some of the posting. I can do email marketing pieces of it. So depending on what a business is looking for, I can fill those needs.
So you have packages though, because I remember like when I worked with you, I knew what I was getting. And I mean, that's just so, like, for certain people, that's just so comforting to know that the package includes this, and this. It's not like an open checkbook type thing. So I really appreciated that about our time, was I knew what I was going to walk away with, the deliverable, and I knew what it was going to cost, and I knew somewhat of the investment of time and energy. I didn't know it was going to, you're going to go back to my childhood and talk about when I was a little kid. But
oh, come on now.
just kidding. But it was so like, it was really helpful to, I mean, I don't know, like I for basketball, and this is weird, but it comes full circle. Michael Jordan to me was like the best basketball player ever, but he needed a coach. I don't know what Phil Jackson possibly could have added value, or Tiger Woods, probably the best golfer ever. What value could a coach offer? But there's that coach piece that in every professional athlete, in pretty much every high level person that wants to go even higher, they have somebody that comes alongside them, whether it's a content coach, a business coach, whatever, but they use coaches in their life, and that's where I think some people have a blind spot, where they don't think they need anybody. I've run into people that they don't need anybody for anything. And those tend to be very, compressed individuals, and they're not really outside the comfort zone, because nobody's ever really even challenged them, because they won't let them do that. So I'm assuming that you have the content piece, but like you alluded to a few times, you also have the coaching piece. What do you like better? The content side or the coaching side?
So for me, they're interrelated,
Okay.
because I am a content coach. The coaching part ends up coming from, as we're creating content, the things that come up, because like you said, it can be uncomfortable to put yourself out there, or to think of yourself as a thought leader, or to, get in front of a video camera for the first time, if that's not your comfort zone.
Sure.
So there's
Yeah.
things that people do in the creative content creation process
Okay.
that are growth oriented, that are new, that are uncomfortable, and I love that part of it. I think that that's an important part of it. Part of what I want people to hear this, part of what makes really good engaging content is if the creator is really in that process.
Okay.
Like, you can tell the difference between a piece of content that's been, thoroughly researched and regurgitated,
Yeah.
versus somebody really sharing themselves and their thoughts and their stories and their, experience.
Yeah.
It feels different. And that's what I love about what I do.
Well, so that is the vulnerability word that, my gosh, that's not a cool word. You know, that's not a word that we learned in school. You know, there just aren't those types of things that we don't want that. I mean, that's just, no, forget that, you know. But the successful leaders are really, I'm learning and I'm training and teaching leaders, the more vulnerable you are, the more your team is going to be vulnerable. And then the more they're vulnerable, the more vulnerable your customer is going to be. And all of a sudden, you know, to your point where you're giving first, that you're giving so much content, you're giving so much because of the fact that it transcends a business transaction, so to speak. So I think that we're in total agreement on that exact spot, because without that vulnerability, I agree. I've read content that was statistically accurate, and maybe it was like written from an engineer perspective, you know, and this is like
Yeah.
on the disc piece, the C people that struggle with their emotions. They're so factual. Those are hard articles for me to read, you
Yeah,
know.
they're flat. They're dead. They're
Right? Yeah. 42 tips to improve your accounting process. I'm just like, oh my gosh, right? That's, you know, 42 of anything, let alone accounting. But that's me, you know. I mean, there's plenty of people that are fantastic at accounting and they love that. And so I think content really is a lot about your personality, because you're going to be sharing the content that you feel is relevant to you. So my question to you is, like, because there's 4 primary personalities, doesn't matter what they are, or if you even believe that there's a number of different personalities. How do you get your content to kind of hit each one of those, or just so it's not hitting somebody like Sarah? You know, everybody that likes Sarah loves Sarah's content. What about the other people that aren't necessarily the same as you?
right. There's a couple things there. First of all, I'll give you a little tip on what I do for downloads and ebooks and things like that.
Okay,
So
great.
let's say I have an accountant. So I have a client of mine is an e-commerce development company, right? Super technologically oriented. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we're going to build relationship by talking about e-commerce
Okay, how
development,
long before your eyes glaze over, really?
right?
Seriously,
Exactly.
yeah.
But you know, if for in your example, if I was going to write 42 tips about how to do my accounting better, that's great. That's fine. And the meat of that
Yeah.
is clear and implementable and valuable and all that stuff. But what happens is businesses just put that out and it's a couple of pages of bullet points and that's it.
Right.
Where's the relationship building?
Right.
And so at the beginning of every ebook or downloadable thing that I create is a piece that I call the love letter.
Okay.
I know sounds a little bit weird in business, but you can call it whatever you want, the welcome letter or the introduction letter. But that is your opportunity to say, here's who I am. Here's
Sure. Okay.
why I'm sharing this with you. Here's how I have the expertise that I have. Here's what I know about you. And here's what I hope you get out of this piece, and, you know, yada, yada, yada.
Okay.
And then you move into the 42 accounting tips.
Sure. Okay.
Because the truth of the matter is there's 10,000, 100,000 accountants out there who could be sharing the same information.
Sure.
Why do I want to listen to you?
Right.
That is the question that people need to be asking themselves when they create content. Is it's the information you're sharing probably is, you know, stuff that other people can be sharing and are sharing, but why do they want to get it from you?
Wow, that's cool. So I'm in the process of writing my second book, and it's a total different book. It's a business fable. So there's characters in the book, and I have to like build these characters out, and it's like trying to, so I'm trying to have different personalities, you know, because I don't want them to all be like me, because that'll a one-sided book that's only going to be, if it was up to me, Sarah, it'd be like 9 pages, right? So no
Right?
one's going to buy 9 pages of a book. But you know, to your point, you have all these different people in there, so I'm trying, it's a total learning experience to try and write and think from a different perspective. And I think that's what we do as coaches. At least that's what I try and do, is they hire me for my perspective, but I also need to understand their perspective as well. So how do you find yourself looking at things from their perspective before you kind of jump in on your typical coaching experiences?
100%. So if it's my client,
Yeah,
that is my job. And it's interesting because not only do I need to understand their perspective, I need to understand their target audience and that perspective, right?
sure.
So part of the value I bring is being that outside person, that outside perspective to, because oftentimes when it's just you or it's inside your business, there's a bit of a what's the word I'm looking for, like they're all just in their own world. And it's hard to see outside of that. And like I said, with the curse of knowledge earlier, to remember what it's
Sure.
like to be on the outside.
Right.
So I bring that outside perspective in.
Sure.
And I think that's really, really important. I have to confess, I haven't often thought in creating my own content about, say, like the different disc styles and the different types of people. Um, but I do, now I feel like I need to go deeper into that.
But this is really cool because I invest probably way too much time on this particular spot. But so think about, again, and the number's arbitrary, but DISC says there's 4 primary types of personality. Well, interestingly enough, each of those 4 people, they trust something different. So like for us, we're high I people. So we trust people that are open to us. Literally they're open. That openness is what draws us closer, because we wouldn't have been connected. I mean, we got connected by another individual, but I think that the connection between us was because hi, I Dave, hi, I Sarah, we get connected. We're okay being open. Think about somebody that that is totally closed off. How hard that is for us to actually, because I'm in the same boat. When I've known people and I know people that, they won't smile. You never want to go across into emotion. You use the word beautiful before about something, they would, that totally like just their mind they can't get it, right? And nobody's right or wrong, better or worse in this. It's just different. So when you're creating content for people, when I'm creating content, I'm looking at it from all 4 perspectives, because the D people, they want it done now. Let's just get the thing done, right? And then the I people, they want it done together, right? Let's do this together, right? I don't care what we're doing as long as we're together. I mean, similar to the love languages type of scenario where people have different, languages of love. And, the S people, it's like, slow it down and let's just take our time, but we don't need to rush into anything, and then the C people, they're like, they want to do it right. Let's do this right. Now, when you have somebody that wants to do it right and you have somebody that wants to do it fast, there's an instant connect bomb right there, And if you're married to one and you're the other, it's like, oh my gosh, there you go, right?
That would be my husband, for
There
sure.
you go. So it's like, I don't care where we go. I just want to go somewhere. Well, it's like, we got to know where we're going. We got to know the path we're getting there. We got to know if there's a gas station along the way. I mean, there's all this stuff, right? And it's like, man, you just ruined the whole experience for me, And so I think that from content, like for me, I'm learning to try and write from two different audiences to be able to draw them in. And like because who nailed that is Hollywood. When you think about MASH or you think about Friends, you think about those shows, they found a personality in each of those, and then you end up connecting with one of those, like, oh my gosh, I love Joey or whatever, right?
Totally
You
relate
have
to
that.
so and so. Yep.
And that's where they did a fantastic job, because they knew that the watcher, the listener, whatever, the reader, they're coming at it from different perspectives. So that's what I've been trying to do. What do you think on your side? What makes for like just fantastic content? What do you think is like, oh my gosh, killer? What are you super proud of? What happens? What's the result of that?
Right.
For you?
So I'm still wrapping my head around your story. I love that. I feel like we should do a joint workshop someday when the
That'd
world
be a
is
blast. I'd love to.
right of
Yeah,
like content
absolutely.
and disc personalities and how
Yep.
they play together. Um, no, but to answer your question, there's a sweet spot. There's a content sweet spot. And as I was saying earlier, there's your business, your expertise, your thing. Think
Hmm.
of I'm drawing out a Venn diagram in the air here. And then there's
Okay, that's what you were doing. I didn't know what you were doing. So
then there's a circle that is your target audience and what they care about and what they, where they're at and a problem maybe that they're dealing with.
sure.
So now you can picture a little bit of there's a little overlap area where they're
Yep.
sort of overlapping. The third one that I add in, especially right now, is what's going on in the world. Can you tie in, a bigger issue, something people care about, a
Sure.
bigger value? And if you can do that
Okay.
little sweet spot, that little overlapping sweet spot,
Sure. Gotcha.
where you personally and you as a business have value to add to an important conversation that matters to your people, that's what makes amazing content.
Wow.
It's
That's
not,
cool.
and I don't know if that's what people expect. People expect some sort of formula about, it's funny or it's quippy or it's this or that, or it's so
Right.
many words. That's not, to me, that's not the magic. The
Yeah.
magic is finding that sweet spot.
Well, I think your goal is like on a LinkedIn post, isn't like if it's a minute long video, your goal is for someone to watch the whole minute, right? I mean, I catch
Ideally.
myself, if there's a 9-minute video on LinkedIn, I don't even start it. That's just right. But that's the high D part going, man, I don't 9 minutes of my life. Are you kidding? I don't have that. But there are plenty of people that, I got all day, and they've cleared their schedule, and we could have so much fun with disc and marketing. It'd be a blast.
Right.
But so as we come in for a landing on this, Sarah, a couple other questions that I have. Number one is, what's something that you would say, like a business tip of the week? What is that? What would you give based on what we talked about, based on your knowledge? If you had like, a minute to tell somebody a great tip, in an elevator, what would you tell
Um, the number one tip as far as content
them? Yeah.
in my mind, and this is coming from an I, is creating something, putting out something is better than doing nothing.
Okay.
I think I would probably, one of my first tips I would do in that scenario is that overcoming your perfection paralysis.
Okay.
Why are you not putting out content right now? And get over it and put something out.
Oh, here you go. I can already tell the C people on this call are
Like,
going, you can't put out content that's not perfect, Sarah. Okay, I don't know where you're coming from with this, right?
Right.
The S people are going, Sarah, we got to run this by some people to make sure that this is the right content. We got to get the committee formed, right? The D people are like, yeah, let's just, who cares? Just get it out there. It's done. It's out there, right? So that's what's fantastic about the different personalities when it comes to this kind of stuff. So putting something out there.
Interrupt because
Yeah.
you're 100% right. And the beauty of content marketing is it's not a one. So especially with what I call nurturing content, which is shorter, free pieces, they're visibility pieces, awareness pieces, blog articles, things like that.
Yeah.
It's not the end of the world. Like, I get if you're publishing a book, you want to go through that process and review process and all of that stuff. But for nurturing content, part of the process, like one of the steps in the process, is put it out.
Yeah.
Put it out and then see how people respond.
Yep.
See how people engage. Change it up a little bit for the next one and be in that process. It's like a conversation with your audience, and they get to be part of the process too. The process cannot, with content marketing, be all behind the scenes.
Sure.
So my S's and my C's, I hear you.
Yeah.
But what I would invite you to think about is engage the audience with the process and have that be okay.
Absolutely.
Does that
And
make sense?
that's funny because I wrote my first book, and it was Amazon #1 bestseller in 3 categories, like instantly. And like one of the first people that responded to me said, you know, you have typos in your book. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, right? I mean, it was just like a total C personality, you know, was just like looking through. I just envisioned this guy with a microscope or a magnifying glass, looking at each word, you know, trying to spell check this thing. And I'm just like, wow. And rather than great book, hey, by the way, you might want to consider this, you know, oh, you got, and I'm just like, hey, thanks so much for pointing that out, you know, and he sent me the list of where they were.
No way.
Oh my gosh. And it was just like, wow, you know. So if you're listening and you want to write a book, you can still write a book and have a bunch of people read it and like it and still have a couple typos and stuff. So, but thank you for that tip. I appreciate that. The last question, as we see the runway in front of us, is what's one thing that most people don't know about you that you feel comfortable sharing?
Ooh. Well, I can't say, so I'll say most people, my friends, you know this about me. A lot of people know this about me. But a lot of your listeners probably don't know this about
Sure.
me.
Yep.
That is that my artistic creative passion on the side, besides creating content, is I'm a dancer. So I grew up dancing. I danced in college. I danced after college. I danced in Chicago. I danced when I moved to Milwaukee, um, all the way up until I had my second child. And I did. I really
Nice.
made it a priority. And then, you know, with 2 small kids and a small growing family and supporting my husband through his training and all sorts of stuff, I couldn't do it for a while. But I reconnected with dance about
Okay.
3 or 4 years ago. I've been doing ballroom dance now,
Nice.
and I adore it. I love it. It brings joy and you know, passion and creativity to my life. So I love sharing that with people, inspiring people with that, because I think more of us need a creative outlet like that.
Wow. Well, you know, white guys can't dance. I mean, I'm sure that that's probably not the best thing to say right now, but I'm just, you know.
Hey, I know a
Let
lot
me
of
put it this way, I can't. There's no way in the world that this is gonna go. There's just no way. Okay, if we do any type of co-training, you can do that. I'll come up with some other thing. I don't know, you know, but it isn't gonna be.
creative. You are creative. You just got to own your
Oh
own
my gosh, yeah.
flavor.
There's no way. There's no way. So. Hey, I so appreciate you hanging out with me and our listeners today. If somebody wants to get in contact with you, learn more about you, you know, learn more about your company, and maybe they have some content questions, what's the best way, Sarah, for them to get in contact with you?
100%. My website is
Okay.
www.contentcreationcoach.com. And
Awesome.
you know, because I believe your website is the hub of your content strategy. There's the download of my book chapter. There's some blog articles you can read into. You can contact me there. You can even book a time on my calendar. So I try to make
Awesome.
my website as engaging as possible. So yeah, again, contentcreationcoach.com.
That's so cool. We didn't even talk about your book, so we need to do this again. Let's get another set of questions, because now I got a ton more, but you know, let's save it for another time. And again, I thank you so much for hanging out with us today, and look forward to seeing you around. And hopefully, once this COVID thing is done, we'll get back to speaking in the world and you know, getting that message out there. I miss that energy of standing in front of people and, you know, just sharing with them my thoughts, and so you probably do as well. And so we can't wait to get back out there. And again, thanks so much for the content today. And we'll put the top 40 topic starters in the show notes. I'm excited to see what those are. So I'm going to hold you to that, just for me, if nothing else. So I just need that on my own. So again, thank you so much, Sarah. And we will talk soon.
My pleasure. I could talk about this all day. So thanks
Awesome.
again.
We're going to set up another one then. All right. Take care.